topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. So thrilled to be here with y'all. So we are almost to the end of the first month of 2024. It's just amazing how time flies by. So how are your goals and resolutions going? So remember, if you are ready to achieve your goals and make your dreams a reality, we are offering you a small gift that will help you with developing habits where you don't have to put in that muscle of discipline. Always remember, the key is not to push your willpower, because sometimes it does give up. For some people, it stays on. The sweet thing behind cultivating habits is that you can become automated. And when you have automated habits, you tend to do things that will bring you closer to your goals. So feel free to ask us any questions, reach out to us, and also remember to pick up our gift. And for those of you who have not got our books, please get our books. Expert to Influencer. It's going to help you become an influencer who creates meaningful impact. It's not just about the number of likes, and it's not just about the number of fans you have. It's about the impact you can create. And Entrepreneur's Garden, that will help you build a beautiful relationship with yourself, with money, with results, and many other things. And the best part is that we will be able to take part of the profits and share it with entrepreneurs all across the globe at kiva.org. So join us and help us make a difference and keep the kindness circle going, where you spend 1 hour of your time every month to be kind to someone that you know or don't know. Let's bring on our guest.
Hi, Divya.
Hi, Margot. So how are
nice
you
to
doing
be
today?
here. I'm great. How are you? So nice to be here with you this morning.
Well, thank you for joining us. And we usually begin from the childhood. So tell us, do you have a person or a moment from your childhood that you remember even today?
I have a moment when my mother made me a costume for Halloween, and I must have been in kindergarten, and she said, "What did you want to be?" And I wanted to be a clown, and I showed up in a stunning clown outfit amongst a whole classroom of princesses. And I've always loved comedy, and I've always loved entertainment, and I've always loved lighthearted communication. And I think seeing that there in that moment, one clown amongst 20 princesses, pretty much solidified my path for life.
You were ready to stand out.
I was ready to make it a little lighter. And I also did not in any way, I think even that young, believe the princess come save me narrative.
Well, that is fascinating. So as you grew up, what were your interests? Because it's definitely very different for a girl of that age in kindergarten to ask for becoming a clown versus a princess. So, what did you enjoy doing?
I enjoyed being with people and I think entertaining and showing them the lighter side of a lot of what was going on in the day. And I think to this, still working now at Blacking PR and helping people through my books, through classes, it's really to help them organize so they can feel more powerful in their own journey.
Mm. So let's go back to your life. As you said that, you liked making things lighter.
Mhm.
So as you graduated from high school, what was the next step that happened in your life?
I went from high school to major in international politics and Spanish. And again, I was interested in how people organize themselves, what they do, how societies organize themselves for power, for effort, for efficiencies, because so many people want to accomplish so much, whether it's as an individual or a group, but really it comes down to the organizing way of how you start your foundation to move forward. And I think I've been fascinated by that forever.
Mm. So tell us, as you were reading through politics and you mentioned Spanish, what
Mhm.
was it that motivated you to go towards Spanish?
Just really a continual desire to communicate. I love language. I love
Hmm.
words. I love the power of words. And if I could learn 5 more languages, I think I would enjoy it. But just I love language. I have been fascinated by words for ages.
Oh, I
I
can
think we
totally
share that
understand.
passion. I think we share that passion.
Yes, I love writing books. I've been telling stories since I was a kid, and writing books, like books is something that's so near and dear to my heart. And since you're bringing it up, learning new languages. So this year,
Mhm.
my goal is to learn Spanish to an extent where I can have a conversation. So that's a
Oh,
new
how
habit
fun.
that I'm cultivating.
I think it's easiest in the foreign country, by the way. A little bit of class wherever you are, and then a trip to the foreign country will make you have an explosive desire.
Yeah, I think so. I might be working backwards because I've been to Spain a couple of years back, and I was like, oh, I wish I had known Spanish. So maybe
Well,
it,
there you go.
we'll plan it again. So
But I would
now,
imagine we both share a passion for words in a deep way.
yes, definitely. So Margot, as you graduated from your college, where did your life take you?
I went to work at an international public relations firm in New
Hmm.
York City, and I continued on a path of communications. I went to work for a couple of political campaigns in between there, and I really learned how to help people communicate so they could understand how to get what they wanted, whether it was an individual or a group or a city. Sometimes it was even a mayor who needed something. But I have been fascinated by the words that people use and what they create from their language forever. And it continues on my path of helping people be more powerful with their words for what they create.
Hmm. So you talk about communication and you
Mhm.
mentioned about PR and political campaigns, and it's always about how other people perceive you. Because you can think about, like, oh, you know what, I want to be this, I want to be perceived this way. And yet that communication matters so much. So let's kind of go from small to big in the senses, like, so let's say if an individual, just in any setting, whether they're
Mhm.
an entrepreneur or a leader or a corporate professional, what would you say are the few communication tips that they need to keep in mind?
That's a fantastic question, Divya. I would say the number one thing is begin with the end in mind. It's the same premise as if you're telling a good joke, and you must know the end of your joke and your punchline before you start. So, if at every time you speak, you can have the end in mind before you start, your communication will out of the gate be 10 times more powerful to the receiver.
Absolutely. And so, what were your couple of big lessons that you learned from being in a PR agency?
That's a great question, too. The first thing is that you really do need to be prepared. I would say the biggest lesson of all, if I could share with everybody or anybody listening, is this: prepare like crazy, and then go with the flow. Because you've got to have an ability to just ride the wave, but you will ride it so much better if you over prepare for everything and then just let it be.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense that you prepare for it and yet have that flexibility to adapt to changing situations because you can never predict. You can prepare for any number of obstacles, whether it's life or anything like that. And that's the
Mhm.
beauty because that's what brings adventure to people's lives. And so you're talking about going with flow. So as you were going through your PR and political campaigns and all that, do you also travel? What brought that interest on?
Well, again, it's a love of people and cultures. And I just think the more you travel, the more you see how much people are the same. And on a personal level, something that gives me great joy. I have read through your work and I know you definitely talk about your own personal joy and what it is that anchors you. People anchor me and nature. So I love nature. I don't think people get enough nature. And when I'm not working, I always want to be outdoors in nature and playing. And that part of travel, also at Black Ink PR, we have a large expertise in travel marketing for years. But for me, on a personal level, travel really feeds my soul in a way creatively and on the topic of nature that just really reinvigorates me to have a lot of energy to serve more people.
Mm. So tell us, what is it about nature that refreshes you or recharges you?
I have always had a beautiful relationship with nature. There was a book many years ago when my son was first born. It's a New York Times bestseller book called Richard Louv, Last Child in the Woods. And when I read that book, I solidified a course in my life forever, and that was to be in nature whenever possible, because that book really shows the human connection to nature. We are all living creatures and how nature fulfills us. I've always loved being in nature. When I was a little kid, my dad had a boat, we'd bop around in the water. But nature to me is something so many humans are deprived of. They don't get enough of these days. Even daylight, just being out in the sun will help you. And so I strive to make sure it's included in my life. And again, to grow myself and to be able to serve more and to ground myself as a human being. I find nature works wonders for me personally.
Oh, yeah,
And
no, I
what
mean,
about you? How do you reinvigorate yourself? What's your key?
nature. It's
Nature, really?
my number one go-to thing is nature. And as a matter of fact, just last week we had a doctor guest who had
Mhm,
mentioned about different lights and LED lights and what are the perils of certain lights and what you should be going. So he
mhm,
had mentioned that it is imperative that we go out in nature, whether it's usually early in the morning, to get that 1 hour of blue light because that is
mhm.
very, very healthy for our health system and overall. So, and you're also kind of bringing in that it's important to be out and about in the nature. So as we
Yes.
move to the political campaigns, because
Mhm.
political campaigns can be very, very hard. So were you there as a volunteer? Were you there as an expertise? Because you did mention that you had to go and also share with the mayor. So tell us about that journey.
That journey just led me back to really PR in a way that I do it now, which is to help businesses and executives and people shine their biggest and brightest. I actually did not enjoy working in politics much. I
Mm.
learned a lot of lessons, but it was not for me. So it was a big path differentiator in which I learned I had the skills, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I'm much happier now representing businesses and people and entrepreneurs than working on political campaigns.
So what were the lessons that you learned?
I think it's always to be true to yourself in whatever you're doing. Anybody's business is their life's work. And I think people separate it a lot. But if it doesn't match your values, something you want to do, it's really not a match. You're not going to be able to create the same body of work with passion and skill So it's better to just take that as a lesson, like, let me move to the other category. The same way you would do for any woman if you were shopping and you tried on your shirt and you're like, what a pretty shirt, not my color. You would never go back to that color. You would just say, let me go find something else. And I think it's as simple as that for work, and people make it too complex.
Mm. Well, that is true. Like, people make complex out of simple things. And
Mhm.
from your experience, why do you think that is?
I think people make up stories in their heads to make themselves comfortable. And I think it's really important when you are telling yourself a story, specifically as somebody who works in the arena of telling stories professionally. I think it's so important that you tell yourself a great story as well as telling a good story about yourself. And people make up stories to make themselves comfortable. And what happens is they repeat the same story of discomfort so often that that becomes their story.
Yes. And so many times, as you're
Mhm.
talking about it, not just becomes their story, becomes the truth.
Yes.
And
Yes. I mean, I would imagine you'd be an expert on that from all your books. You're asking me, but what do you think of that? You're the one who's the positioning advisor in that arena.
well, here's the thing, we are here to listen to you, not me.
That's sweet, but I would imagine you know a lot about how people, um
Yes, yes. It's basically what happens is, coming from a neuroscience background, the brain does not see the difference between the reality
and the
and
same is happens in
yes,
PR
and
and
what has
marketing.
happened in the past. So many times what happens is that so many memories are not even what had happened actually, because people remember in a way. It's exactly like what you said, right? People have a story, and as you keep on repeating it, then it becomes the truth. So as you have, as you have worked with people, helping them communicate, I'm
Mhm.
sure that these existing stories have come in people's way. How do you help them break them?
That's such a great question. It's a very simple answer, but a complex structure. So the best way to break it is to write a new story. It's as
Hmm.
simple as that. Just write yourself a better story, write yourself a new story. And most importantly, and I really address this in my new and upcoming book, which I know we'll get to, you must write a story to your future, not to your past. So many people of all sorts, people, businesses, executives, are writing stories that rehash their past. When you want to write and market, even for yourself, to your future, to your desires, and you want to create from there. And that's the most important starting point in any good story. And again, just like I said, you've got to begin with the end in mind. You want to know where you're going and keep your eye on that mark and start from there.
Mm, that's definitely a great point, Margot. Here's the thing, most people
Mhm.
don't know where they want to go. They're not
That's
clear.
the number one problem, Divya. That's it. That's it. That's it. They have no mark. And the biggest lesson I ever learned in my life was on a sailing team. And on that sailing team, we would race. We were a top rated sailing team for 6 years until the boat broke. But you always, when you're sailing, have your vision fixed on a mark and you go there, but you have to tack. It's a sailing term to change directions, but you always have your eye on a mark. And it's the same for life, for marketing, for planning. You've got to have your eye on the mark while you're planning.
Hmm. So, okay, you talked about marketing and planning, and I know you help out in branding. So tell,
Mhm,
there's so many businesses out there, they've got this vision as to who they want to be, what they want to
mhm.
be to their audience, and how they want to communicate. So, what's the best way for a business owner to start out, even planning? Let's say they're just right out of the gate,
You mean just starting their brand?
just starting the brand.
The very most important way, a brand essentially is a promise. It's a promise of how you're going to show up, right? We go to Nike, we know they're going to be athletic. Nike's has the best promise, just do it. And it's almost as if that swoosh will go to the gym for you. That's their promise. They will exercise, they will make you strong. Nike is just do it. So if I want to go to the gym, I'm going to pick Nike. If I go to like 35 others, it'll feel like those sneakers will do the work for me. A brand, Divya, is at its bare starting functionality is a promise. It's a promise as to how you, your personal brand, or your business is going to show up. So the very first thing you need to do is decide what's your promise. And I recommend people start with 5 core values. Just start with 5. Perhaps I'm going to be educational. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to be informational. I'm going to be well researched, and I'm going to be friendly and accessible. Start from your core values and build your brand from there.
Hmm. I love that piece, having that core values, because that's very near and dear to my heart. And here's the thing, like, when you
Mhm.
have those core values, they will guide each and every direction that you're taking in personal
Yes.
life, helping you make the decisions, also how you interact with people. And
Mhm.
as Maya Angelou said, that, people don't remember what you did for them, but people will remember how you made them feel. So,
Always.
yeah, so when we're talking about feeling, right? So if you take
Mhm.
a look at Apple and Samsung, so Apple has mastery of putting their client, which is a hero. Like, I think so. One of the ads I saw is like, oh, one of the obstacle is like this person is on a mountain and they want to take a picture, and how can they take like a picture? And then there comes the Apple phone and like removing the obstacle and showing them that mark, as you mentioned. It is so beautifully done. And when you look at Samsung's ads, it's all about the phone, like, how many megapixels and all that. So,
The whole difference. That's it in a nutshell. That is
yes,
it.
yes, it
One is
does.
putting you at the center of the story, and the
Mhm.
other is putting the product at the center. And it's a world of difference. I mean, just look at Apple sales. And Apple had the original power promise when they first came out. Remember the iPod like 8,000 years ago? And you could have 1,000, that's how showing age, right? How old it is. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Remember that original promise?
Mhm.
That spoke
Mhm.
magnitudes as to the product. It wasn't, look at this piece of technology that has blah, 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 blah. It was 1,000 songs in your pocket. That was the promise. Who didn't want that? I remember waiting in line for hours and hours to get one.
Mm. So, yeah, we've kind of showed that. And when you give an example, people will be like, entrepreneurs like, yeah, yeah, I get it. But how can they go about it? Do you have a simplified way that an entrepreneur can take and create that promise?
I do. That's actually that is what I wrote my entire new book about. My book comes out February 1st. I'm
Mm.
showing you a copy that has my notes on it right now, but it launches February 1st, so it's coming out. It's called Life's a Pitch: How to Win What You Want in Business and in Life. And this book lays out a formula for exactly how to get what you want, definitely media wise. It addresses all personal branding and business branding issues in a very multimedia, multi-platform universe, which is what we live in now. And people get so overwhelmed and confused. But the basic building blocks are all the same for everyone. You just have to do it in an order that works for you so you're not constantly overwhelmed.
Right. So that's fantastic. Congratulations on your
Thank you.
upcoming book.
Thank
And
you.
yeah,
I'm
they're
really looking
making,
forward to it.
yes, it's a major milestone in anybody's life and something to be very, very thrilled about and be proud of yourself and
I know, and I'm
celebrate.
so excited to be here with you, Divya. You're my first interview. It drops February 1st, and you're my first one. So I'm so excited to kick it all off with you. Yay!
No, we are happy to kick it off with you as well. So now there may be some entrepreneurs who may be thinking, okay, by the time I get booked, there are a lot of people who they just don't have that attention span to read it. So
Mhm.
what would you tell them, like something simple to get started to build that promise?
To build your promise, you really have to think of where do you want to go. You have to look at what are you capable of delivering in the most basic form of a value to build from, right? And
Hmm.
you have to make sure, let's say you deal with customers. You must be friendly. I know that sounds really simple, but if you're a restaurant owner and you don't have a great greeting at the door and a way to amplify that basic value. And amplification is a really big deal in all of these brand promises. It's not just you that delivers on the promise. Everybody in your business needs to deliver on the promise. Using a restaurant as an example, just imagine how uncomfortable your dining experience would be if somebody wasn't friendly. And also, it seems so basic if somebody wasn't clean. So you've got to think of what the basic foundational principles of your business are, and then how you're going to amplify them so everybody feels them the same.
Mm-hmm. No, that's wonderful. Because think about it,
Mhm.
any restaurant or even car mechanic or realtor or your doctor or
Right.
anyone that you keep on going back to
Mhm.
over and over again, it is who make you feel good. And also, it is, a lot of entrepreneurs forget it's not just about acquiring new customers, it's also about retaining your customers because your customers can become your champions. So, as we're talking about the brand, what about an online entrepreneur? Now, they don't have anybody on their business. And of course,
Okay.
the online game is a completely different beast. How can they go about it?
All right. It's not as different as you think because it's still dealing with human beings. One
Mm-hmm.
of the bigger problems I see with online only businesses, that's what I assume you're talking about, correct? When it's
Yeah,
only
yes,
online.
yes.
Okay. So the first thing is that everybody online, you're going to meet somebody most likely these days for the first time online. So there's no now we're in a generation that is both online and offline. It's perfectly melded. Like this generation, Gen Z, has never not known a digital life. So to that
Right.
generation, to hear us say online or offline doesn't even make sense anymore. It looks antiquated. And we, as a generation of business people, need to catch up to that because that's the way it is right now. So, first, there's no difference between online and offline, it's still business. And in business, you need the same principles. You're going to honorably deliver a product. You're going to be easy to find. You're going to be easy to understand the value you produce for your client. And you're going to be client centered. And when you can hit all those marks, you have a business that can flourish.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now, when you say easy to find,
Mhm.
what can people do to be easily found? Especially, there are so many. It's right. We are talking about, yeah, easy to find, and at the same token, if you type in just a simple business coach, you'll find pages and pages of
Yes.
information.
Yes.
And so many times, a lot of people are not going to have that time, effort, or money to have that SEO. Like, not everybody's going to pour in money into SEO, and especially with, like, we don't even know, like, new perplexity is coming out. The
Mhm.
geo SEO algorithms are changing. When you go on Facebook, like in the Facebook or Meta or TikTok, wherever, whichever platform you're on, like the algorithms are changing consistently. So, amongst all of this, how can people be found easily?
Okay, that is a sensational question. There are many ways, but the first way, and I talk about this in my book, is a clear visual identity. Because there's so many different platforms and there's so many different places to meet people now, we want to make sure that every time we see one person, the platform might change, the message might change a little bit, the way that you're delivering the message might change, but we want to know it's you all the time and it should be very very obvious very quickly. So, for instance, in blacking PR, I tend to wear red. Red is one of my brand colors. I'm doing an interview that's related to my book, Life's a Pitch. I have another book, but that I don't wear red for. This one is Life's a Pitch for blacking PR. I'm wearing red. You can see me. It's a business branding color. It's consistent. So one is make sure your visuals across platforms have some sort of identifying factor. And the second really important tip is when you are creating your URL or your email or your business name, you really need to make it easy to find from your customer standpoint. A
Hmm.
very common problem that I see is people will use numbers or difficult words or difficult spellings. And when you're going to look for something out of the gate and life is busy and you have 10 other options, you really don't want to find necessarily design with a Z, designs for with a for and for you. Like that's a little confusing. And when you find yourself pitching it to people, you can find my website at design, DEZIGN for and the letter U. I mean, it sounds terrible. It's hard to do. So you want to make sure whatever it is you're telling people to find you with, it comes out of your mouth like silk.
Yeah. Because, for example, like, your website is blackinktravelwriting.com.
That is my side passion that I do for work. That is my I have been a writer. I'm a syndicated travel writer. I am the rare publicist that is a publicist and a writer at the same time. But I have always written travel articles because I love it so much. But my website is black ink like the color, black like the color, ink, INKPR.com. It's easy to find. It's easy to understand. My author website is my name, margotblack.com. That ease, Divya, using your name, saying your business address is a lot clearer to an audience than trying to use a lot of different words. And when I hear people using a lot of different words or a lot of different numbers, or most commonly, I find people changing up simple words like baby, like BAY. And it's just makes it so much harder to find. Google doesn't like it. Search engines don't like it. You really have to understand, in addition to doing your work, you need to do it from a place of how will I best be found by your customer? By your customer. Do it from a customer centric place to start, and you will win.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point that you're sharing. And does any other tips come to your mind for our audience?
I have a whole book of tips for my shameless plug for Life's a Pitch.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I
Definitely.
have so many tips. You can follow along. I have a newsletter at Black Ink PR. Anybody can sign up. I give bi-weekly tips. I could fill hours of tips, but I will say this. It is a very busy world right now, and everybody has a phone in their pocket. Above all, above all that happens, people love to be entertained and educated. So if you can keep your content with those two flavors, entertainment and education, you will win people's hearts. And most importantly, you'll win their attention.
Hmm. Definitely a great tip right there. So tell us where your, I know you mentioned that your book is coming out on February 1st, but where can
Mhm.
people find your book? And
My
where can
book will be
people
on
find you as an
Amazon
author?
first. My book will be, of course, just go to Amazon, look for Margot Black, and Life's a Pitch will pop up. And that will be my starting place to drive everybody to. Also, entrepreneur and business tip, one call to action, always the same. For my book, Life's a Pitch, go to Amazon. I look forward to entertaining and educating and serving you. But that will be the number one place to go and find my new book.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Margot.
Thank you so much, Divya. And I would like to say this to your audience. Everybody has the power these days to be your own publicist and get your work out there. It is such a big world with so many wonderful shows like yours, Live Beyond Confidence. It really, the most important job, Divya, is that everybody is their own packager. Everybody has to take the time to package their own information so that others can receive it kindly and generously and easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us.
Thank you,
You
Divya.
absolutely. And thank you, audience, for being there for us all the time. We love you. And we will see you next week. We have got a store and surprise. We have got a surprise in store for you. And be well and take care. And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible.
Yay! Thank you, audience.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.